Welcome in, everyone. Today we're diving deep into Money Won't Make You Rich.
Okay, sounds intriguing.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And it's by Pastor Sunday Adelaja,
Mm,
who went from real poverty in Nigeria to leading this huge church and helping tons of people become successful financially.
wow, that's quite a journey. So what's the book all about?
Well, he shares his story, but it's more about the insights, like what were the key things he learned and how can we actually apply them? And it doesn't matter if you're already killing it in business or just starting to think about your financial future.
Gotcha. So it's about those practical takeaways.
Yeah, I like it.
So where does he start?
Well, he does this thing where he connects wealth to this global picture, right?
Right.
But then he brings it right down to the individual experience, especially for Christians.
Okay, interesting. How so?
He paints this really vivid picture in the book. He contrasts a typical American family, surrounded by stuff,
Yeah, I get it.
with a family in Nigeria who's struggling to get by.
Right, that stark contrast. It's something we see everywhere, really.
Yeah, it's like this reality check that makes you stop and think.
For sure.
And he doesn't just stop at highlighting the inequality. He says, this level of poverty, it isn't God's will.
Bold statement.
Right.
Yeah.
He believes that the church should be empowering people to thrive financially, not just offering temporary help.
So it's about more than just charity. It's about actually equipping people to build wealth.
That's the idea. And he's pretty critical of what some pastors call the prosperity gospel, where the focus is all about giving to the church.
Right.
Adelaja says true prosperity comes from giving people the tools and knowledge to create wealth themselves.
Interesting. So less about handouts, more about handing over the keys to financial independence.
Exactly. And he even calls out this contradiction. You've got these wealthy pastors preaching that money doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've seen that.
He says it creates this imbalance when, the leaders are living large and their congregation can barely afford, anything.
It's a tough point to argue. It's hard to take financial advice from someone who's never really struggled,
Totally. So he's pushing for this more balanced approach, where financial well-being is actually a part of a fulfilling life, spiritually and practically.
Okay, so how does he propose we find that balance?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. He lays out these specific principles for creating wealth.
Oh, so it's practical advice.
Yeah, and it's clear this isn't just theory for him. He's actually lived it. He set a goal to make his first $1 million.
Wow, ambitious. Did he do it?
He did.
Okay, I'm hooked. How long did it take? A year? 5 years?
9 months.
9 months. That's incredible. What's the secret? What did he do?
Okay, so one of the first things he talks about is this misconception that money equals wealth.
Right, it's easy to think that.
He says money is just a tool.
Okay, a tool for what?
For achieving your goals. It's about what you do with the money, not just how much you have.
So true wealth is more than just a big bank account.
Right. He says it's about having your needs met. It's about being free to pursue what you're passionate about. And it's about having the resources to really make a difference.
It's about aligning your financial goals with your values and what you really want out of life.
That's it. But how do we actually get there? What are some of the steps?
Well, he gets super practical in the book. He talks about identifying what he calls non-essential expenses. Those little things we waste money on without even thinking.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Like that daily latte or those impulse buys at the grocery store.
Yeah. Adelaja says that even redirecting a little bit of that spending consistently into investments, it can totally snowball over time. It's about putting your money to work instead of the other way around.
So he's not advocating for extreme frugality. It's more about mindfulness.
Precisely. It's about realizing that financial freedom often comes from making small, smart choices consistently. And even tiny changes can make a huge difference in the long run.
So he's providing a kind of roadmap for reaching financial and spiritual prosperity.
Which is something, honestly, a lot of us are looking for, right? A way to find that balance.
That's the idea. It's a good point, though, right? Isn't there a risk of getting, I don't know, too focused on money?
Yeah.
Even if we're talking about using it for good, how do you balance that with your faith?
That is the question, isn't it? And Adelaja, he really digs into that. He doesn't shy away from the spiritual side of wealth creation at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually says that God has a key role.
Okay, I'm listening.
But it's not about God just handing us riches.
Right.
He says it's about God equipping us with the ability to create wealth ourselves.
Okay, so it's we get the tools and the potential.
Yeah.
And then it's up to us to use them.
Exactly. He talks about our talents and skills, our drive, all gifts from God, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And by using them diligently, honestly, with integrity, that's how we honor him. Not just in, like, the amount we make, but how we make it.
I like that. It's like this connection between your work and your faith, like seeing your career or your business, even your everyday tasks, as part of a bigger purpose.
Exactly. And this is where Adelaja's story, it's so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't always a pastor. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
He had this whole successful career in journalism before he felt called to ministry.
Wow, okay. So he left like a secure, good-paying job to follow this calling.
He did.
What was that like?
I mean, it wasn't easy, you know.
Yeah.
He talks about facing opposition, death threats even, because of his race and his message.
Oh, wow.
But he saw those as opportunities, not setbacks.
That's a different way to look at it.
He believed that he was doing what God wanted him to do, and that belief, it really fueled his determination.
Wow, that's incredible. Really makes you think about the challenges in your own life, you know?
I know, right?
Are they really obstacles or are they like opportunities in disguise pushing you towards, your purpose?
Yeah, totally. And throughout the book, Adelaja shares these amazing stories, not just his own, to show how these principles really work in real life.
Right, right. Like that young woman you mentioned who became a millionaire at 22. How did she do that? What's her story?
Okay, so she was a student, really struggling financially, living on almost nothing like $2 a day when she found Adelaja's teachings.
Wow. Okay.
And she started applying them, saving what she could, learning about investing, and within a few years, successful business, total financial freedom.
See, that's what I'm talking about. But it's easy to hear those stories and be like, well, yeah, good for them, but I could never do that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's easy to think that way.
You know what I mean?
I do. But that's where the practical stuff comes in. He doesn't just tell you what to do, he actually shows you how.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so he talks about leveraging the banking system.
Okay, now we're talking. How do we do that?
He shares this story about a guy from his church, a carpenter, skilled, hardworking, but, struggling with money.
Yeah.
Adelaja encourages him to, think bigger, take a calculated risk, get a loan, invest in real estate.
Big step.
Huge. The guy was scared, obviously.
Right.
But Elijah mentors him through it, and long story short, a few years later, the guy has built this whole real estate portfolio.
That's incredible. So it's about like stepping outside your comfort zone, being smart, but taking those risks and then using the resources that are out there.
Yeah, exactly. He also talks a lot about financial literacy,
Oh, like understanding how money actually works.
Yes, like how to manage it, how to make it grow. He believes that knowledge is power, that anyone can achieve financial freedom no matter their background.
It's true, though. Sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't like not having enough money to begin with. It's not knowing how to use what you have.
100%. You mentioned that story earlier about the businessman who became a pastor.
Oh, yeah. Paul, right. What happened to him?
His story is wild. So he was involved in some, let's say, questionable business practices, living a life that totally clashed with his faith.
Right.
And then he has this, like, profound experience, feels God calling him to change.
Wow. That must have been a huge moment for him. So what did he do?
He completely transforms his life, dedicates himself to serving God, and eventually becomes a pastor.
Wow.
But he's still struggling financially, feels called to ministry, but doesn't know how to make it work practically.
It's that balance again, right? Passion and like actually paying the bills.
Exactly. And that's where Adelaja comes in again. He tells Paul, use your skills, man. Use that business mind for good. Apply those same principles, diligence, integrity, strategy to his ministry.
Interesting. So it's not about just throwing away your experience. It's about finding a way to make it work for this new path.
Exactly. Don't abandon it. Transform it.
Did it work? I mean, did Paul's situation get better?
It did. He starts using these principles, and his church, it thrives. He's able to reach more people, have a bigger impact, and he eventually reaches a level of, financial stability that he never thought possible.
Amazing. It's amazing how both these stories, like, it's not just about the money, right? It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills and your passions and your faith all line up.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what Adelaja wants us to see. This isn't about like some get-rich-quick scheme that's way deeper than that. He's offering this whole new perspective on wealth, on success, on what it actually means to live a good life.
Yeah, it's not about just stacking up money. It's about finding that purpose, living with integrity, using what you have to make a difference.
He really makes you think about your legacy. you know?
Mm, yeah.
Like, what will people remember you for? The fancy car, the big house,
Mm,
or how you treated others, how you used what you had to make the world a better place?
that's a good question to ask yourself.
It is, right.
It's like true wealth. It's not just something you get, it's something you build, something you cultivate over time.
100%. And Adelaja, he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. He talks about taking responsibility, you know,
Oh, yeah.
no excuses,
Yeah.
being willing to get uncomfortable to do the work.
He's saying that financial freedom, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Exactly.
Oh.
And it takes work, dedication, constantly learning and growing. And you got to believe in yourself, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about having that can-do attitude, believing in your abilities even when it's hard, even when you face setbacks.
He's proof of that. I mean, come on, death threats. And
Oh,
he kept going.
exactly. It's about pushing through those challenges, not giving up on your dreams. And, you know, it's okay to ask for help. He talks about mentorship, finding those people who believe in you. You don't have to do it all alone.
It's about finding your people, right?
Yeah.
Building a community that gets it, who can celebrate with you and also be there when things are tough.
Exactly. Yeah. Ultimately, you know, Elijah reminds us that true security, feeling truly content, that doesn't come from stuff. It comes from your faith, your relationship with God, trusting that you're on the right path.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into money won't make you rich, what's like the one thing you hope people take away from Adelaja's message?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I hope they realize they have the potential to do amazing things, financially, spiritually, the whole package. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate what happens when you align your work with your beliefs. That calling you're searching for, it might be closer than you think. And the impact you can have, it's probably bigger than you can imagine right now.
It's a good reminder that, like, real wealth, it's not about how much you get, it's about how much you give, what you contribute, how brightly you shine your light.
I like that.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And remember, the journey to true prosperity, it all starts with that first step.